Hi guys, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here again. And today I'm going to tell you the story of Chipotle and Steve Ells. So Steve Ells grew up always loving to cook. It was a passion of his. And he ended up just going the conventional route to college in Boulder. And when he graduated, he decided he was going to go to culinary school. He's at this school, really loving it. And the end part of this program is that you have to go and work in a restaurant and do kind of like an internship or apprenticeship for a few months. Steve chooses this restaurant called Stars in San Francisco. It's not around anymore, but back in the day, it was a really amazing place. It was super well known and just a great place to kind of have his entrance into the culinary world. While he's living in San Francisco, he's eating a lot of mission-style burritos. What are those? Well, they're basically the Chipotle burrito before Chipotle. They were these massive burritos you get at taquerias. He was eating them all the time, just obsessed with them. And one day he started kind of writing down the economics on his napkin, and he was like, the economics of this place is really good. I mean, you got a small space, so cheap rent. All the ingredients are really simple and cheap, and the margins are just so good. So when he's done with this program and moves back to Colorado, he's still thinking about this, and he's really keen on starting his own fine dining restaurant. Starting a restaurant can be quite a scary feat. A lot of them don't make it, and it's quite a big investment. And so he thought, what if I could open this burrito spot, which is pretty low risk, and then I'll use that to fund a fine dining restaurant. He was going around Denver looking for a space and found this one for $800 a month to rent, which is mind-blowing now. He needs, some initial cash in the door to buy all the ingredients and redo the restaurant, all of that. So he gets an $85,000 part loan, part investment from his father, and he starts redoing this space. And the kind of cool aesthetic of Chipotle that we know now with all the metal and very industrial, that actually came from him trying to pinch pennies early on. Another really important thing to note is that he was super keen on having the open kitchen. Now I think it's more common for us to see, that style where you see the food all being made in front of you, you see the fresh ingredients, but back when he was starting Chipotle, that wasn't really as much of a thing, and he wanted each person who came into Chipotle to really connect with the ingredients and the food being made. So that was quite a prolific thing that he decided to do. The name of Chipotle actually comes from him loving Chipotle peppers, and he knew that they were going to be a key ingredient in a lot of the recipes at Chipotle, but still didn't know what name he wanted for the shop. And one day he was looking at a can of Chipotle peppers, and he was like, oh yeah, that's the name. Said since then, they had loads of people coming in being like, is it Chipotle? Is it Chipotle? Like all of those things. But now we kind of all know Chipotle. Back at this time, he really only thinks that Chipotle will be one location. And he works out the economics, and in order to make a marginal profit, he needs to sell 103 burritos every day. So he opens on July 13th, 1993. Opens for dinner, and really it's just friends and family supporting him, coming in for dinner. And he said about like $250 on the first day, and then the second day he makes a little bit more, and then on the third day he makes a little bit more. And one day this guy comes in to write an article about Chipotle for the Colorado news, and he tells Steve this, and Steve's like, okay, well, what are you gonna write? And he's like, well, I'm not telling you. And this article comes out the next day, and it's just a glowing review of Chipotle. Obviously, Steve is stoked, and it's calling them just like the new wave of fast food. It's this amazing experience, whereas if you don't want to go and go out for dinner and buy a whole meal, but you also don't want to be ordering from the Burger King dollar menu, you have this really sweet spot that also didn't really exist as much back then in the 90s of really nice, high-quality ingredients, but still fast food. Right after this article comes out, the next morning, there's a line wrapped around the block, and they actually run out of ingredients on the first day, and then the next day, they buy even more ingredients, and they have an even longer line, and they run out then as well. This just keeps happening, and it's not dying down. And Steve at this point is selling like 1,000 burritos a day. And, you know, he only had to sell those 103 to make a profit. So around this time, because cash flow is so good, he opens up a second location, kind of begrudgingly. And that launch is even more popular than the launch of his first one. Quickly after that, he opens a third. Just because there's so many lines coming out of Chipotle, he has to kind of, you know, spread people out a bit. It was after he opened this third location that he started thinking about expanding beyond Colorado, but also knew that in order to do that, he would have to raise some more money. Luckily, his dad gives him $1.5 million in investment to help him expand to Kansas City, which is the next kind of city he's got his eyes on. His dad is so surprised by how successful Chipotle is off the bat. He tells Steve, he's like, you never went to business school. You need to start getting things in order. I need you to sit down with an accountant, and you have to actually start getting more serious. And so he does this, and he's starting to kind of, you know, go through almost an MBA just on the spot. After opening the first few locations in Kansas City, Steve needs to raise more money because he realizes that the system that they have is so profitable. He's just got to start expanding to loads of different cities. This time he comes to his dad and he goes, do you want to invest again? And his dad's like, no, you've got to go start talking to the much bigger guys, the people who can lend a lot of expertise to this growth. And again, you didn't go to business school, you studied art history, you've got to get, you know, advisors. He sits down, he makes a financial model, he makes a business plan, and he starts pitching VCs. Around this time, someone recommends McDonald's to him because McDonald's is trying to kind of diversify their portfolio and buy up these smaller chains. They start talking, and McDonald's is really interested. And for the whole next year, they're kind of visiting him, auditing the business, and getting ready to offer Steve a huge payout to buy the entire business. You know, already Steve was nervous to approach them because it's McDonald's, which is like the antithesis of what Chipotle was. But he says no. He still really wants to hold on to the brand of Chipotle. Again, cash flow is so good. He would be crazy to leave the business at this point. He accepts $1.8 million from McDonald's. This allows him to just start expanding to even more cities. Now, what McDonald's does is they start investing a little bit here and a little bit there, and they just keep doing different rounds of funding Chipotle every time they kind of need like a re-up. And after 7 years and putting $360 million into Chipotle, they ended up being the largest owners of the brand. Steve has only great things to say about his partnership with McDonald's. They completely let him run the business how he wanted, but at the same time he was able to tap into their resources. This incredible kind of symbiosis between them. And there were certain things, like at one point Steve finds out about this free-range pig farm where he wants to change his current pork in the carnitas to this farm where he feels like it'll be a lot higher quality meat for the Chipotle meat. McDonald's is super apprehensive about this because, you know, they come from the mindset of you can get a whole sandwich at McDonald's for $1. And in order to bring this new meat in, they were gonna have to up their carnitas by an entire $1. And that big of a price jump in fast food is quite unheard of. But Steve tells them, he's like, you know what, this is going to work, I promise. People are gonna be stoked that, you know, they're getting a higher quality ingredient. Obviously, he's not completely sure. But when they start sourcing from this farm and they up the carnitas by $1, their sales just go even higher. It was an amazing idea because, again, people really loved this concept that Chipotle was giving them the richest ingredients for still quite affordable prices. Okay, so we're about 10 years in at this point. 2003, there's over 1,000 locations of Chipotle, and him and McDonald's start butting heads a little bit. McDonald's prides itself on the franchise model. They really love all their franchisees, they really love taking care of them, and it's an integral part of their business model, and they really wanted to offer their McDonald's franchise people the opportunity to franchise Chipotle. And the economic model for keeping Chipotle in the brand and not franchising out was actually more profitable. So Steve was like, absolutely not. I think you guys have a great model, but we're gonna make more money if we just keep it in-house. Which was true, but again, McDonald's just really wanted to take care of their franchise people. But this is going on for a few years, and at the same time, McDonald's starts thinking that they need to put a lot more time, energy, and resources into McDonald's and kind of divest from a lot of these brands that they initially invested in. And they ended up divesting completely from Chipotle in 2006. And, they made a crazy good investment. So I told you that they put in $360 million into Chipotle originally. Well, they cashed out with $1.5 billion. So they 5x'd what they put in just a few years, which is really incredible. He also talks about, he loved building the company at the beginning, the 16-hour days, the feeling like he was making something new and bringing this thing that was formerly only really in the Mission District in San Francisco and spreading it all across the US. However, as any company grows, you're doing less of the building and it's a lot more managing and working at a company. Steve Ells actually ended up staying at Chipotle until 2020. So that's, 27 years of working for this brand, and he really just put his blood, sweat, and tears into it. And now, at the age of 53, he is worth $200 million. Why did Chipotle succeed, and why did they succeed at the scale that they did? Number one is that they gave people minimal options when you walked in. It's actually proven that humans like less options most of the time, and when you go into Chipotle, you can pick bowl or burrito or salad. You pick from a small selection of meat. You pick brown or white rice, black or brown beans. That is something that I think made them Chipotle and made them so loved by people. You always know what you're getting at Chipotle, which brings me to my second point, is the high quality ingredients. Now, I know I didn't talk about the E. coli mess that they went through in 2015, and they've since corrected a lot since then. That was quite a horrifying time for their business. They have really great ingredients at Chipotle. It leaves you feeling good, feeling healthy for a fast food-ish price. Another point is that Steve was really lucky. I mean, he had a great idea, but to have a dad who can put so much money into your business starting out, we can't deny that is a privilege for sure. And secondly, the fact that Chipotle was willing to give him so much money and allow him to figure out and run the business how he saw fit is quite incredible. Popularized something new around the country. It was definitely a risk because maybe people wouldn't like Mission style burritos, but it was that risk and bringing something new to the market that obviously led to all of his success. You always want to find a hole in the market to fill as an entrepreneur, and this was the hole that he saw to fill. I'm sure you're wondering what happened to the fine dining restaurant. Well, he never actually ended up making it. He kind of got so engrossed in Chipotle and its growth and how fast it was scaling and how big of a project it was. His idea and dream to start a fine dining restaurant with the profit, it went out the door pretty quickly. But I'm sure, it's definitely better off that he stuck with Chipotle, because I don't think that anyone that early on can imagine scaling something that would be worth over $20 billion.